Chancay Port, a case study of China's infrastructure investments. Situated 70 kilometers north of Lima, Peru's capital, Chancay Port was first proposed back in January 2008, a time where Chinese-Latino trading ties were rapidly growing. The Chancay Port is one of the most important Belt and Road projects in Latin America for the Chinese. Inaugurated November 14th, Chancay is Peru's first publicly accessible port and can accommodate ships with an 18,000 TEU capacity, a unit used in the shipping industry to quantify volume using standardized shipping containers. Made up of three major components, the logistics hub is comprised of the port operational zone, where docks, maintenance sites, and storage for bulk and rolling cargo containers will be sited. Then there is the entrance complex, which includes a custom inspections area, administrative offices, and entrance gates to the terminal. Finally, there is the underground tunnel. Not in the initial proposal, and certainly one of the more ambitious plans that was in the project, the tunnel is 1.8 kilometers long and has 3 vehicle lanes for cargo transportation, along with 2 conveyor belts for solid bulks and piping for liquid bulks. Investors have high hopes for the port, which is estimated to create over 8,000 jobs, reduce transit times from South America to Shanghai from 45 to 30 days, and generate $4.5 billion in annual revenues for Peru. In past decades, Peruvian ports were managed by multiple operators in a series of public-private ownerships, but in 1970, the industry was brought under state control when the company Empresa Nacional de Puertos, INAPU, was formed to meet the nation's growing demand for port services and to develop Peru's infrastructure capabilities. Costing over $3 billion with a 60% stake from China's state-owned COSCO Shipping and a 40% stake from local firm Volcan Compañía Minera, Chancay will be Peru's first port which is wholly privately owned, a significant step for the country's infrastructure. The change in approach reflects a shift for Lima both in its development strategy and its foreign policy objectives, the latter of which the U.S. is monitored with growing alarm as the region realigns towards China. Back in the late 2000s, when Chancay was first introduced, China was slowly taking over Latin America with its appetite for commodities to support the country's exports, as well as the rising Chinese middle class, a new economic bloc which possessed discretionary income and the desire to improve their living standards. In 2009, the PRC acquired the title of Brazil's main trading partner, a signature achievement of Lula da Silva's deal-making with the CCP. That same year, China also emerged as Chile's largest trading partner, and in 2011, the Peruvians would enjoy the same relationship with Beijing. In fact, between 2000 and 2020, China-LATAM trade grew 26-fold from $12 billion to $310. China is among the top sources of foreign direct investment and finance for the LAC region and supports the region with infrastructure construction, renewable energy, machinery and transport equipment, and a variety of manufactured goods. South America in turn sends China vast amounts of ore and metals such as iron and copper, as well as domestically produced machinery and agricultural commodities like soybeans and pork. Trade is only expected to increase in the future as countries in the region sign FTAs, free trade agreements with Beijing, and projects such as the Bi-Oceanic Trade Corridor come online. The Bi-Oceanic Trade Corridor is a proposed network of transport infrastructure including roads, railways, airports, and shipping ports that would connect the coast of Brazil to the Pacific Ocean. Integrating both sides of Latin America and connecting the inner countries, this will only further trade with emerging Asian states like China, Japan, Korea, and India. For the Peruvians, the project represents a massive opportunity for the country, where Peruvian cities can emerge as major choke points to capture South America's trade with the East. The PRC ambassador to Peru commented, "China is betting on Chancay to become the Shanghai of Peru, and Peru's neighbors have also been supportive of this project. Ultimately, however, transport routes are decided by time and price. While Chancay is located closer to China geographically, land routes to the megaproject are limited and underdeveloped. In order to facilitate interregional trade, it is imperative that Peru begins the construction of additional roads and railways to link the distribution networks of other South American cities to Chancay. A study by the Universidad del Pacífico examined the case of Manaus, a city in northwestern Brazil. Chancay is about 3,600 kilometers from the city, 13% shorter than the current Atlantic route. Despite this, the study comments that the cost per kilometer of maritime transport is a fraction of what it costs for land or river transport to reach the port. Therefore, it continues, the potential benefits of the shorter China-Peru sea distance could be obfuscated by the longer distance to reach Chancay from Brazil, since the final freight price may not be cheaper than the current route. To realize their dream of transforming the country into a maritime hub, Peruvian lawmakers have also floated the idea of a special economic zone, or SEZ, with the aim of attracting large manufacturers. The creation of such a zone will confer domestic and foreign manufacturers with tax incentives, encouraging companies to invest in Peru's industrial base as well as improve its infrastructure. Taking advantage of the economic benefits as well as the reductions in transportation times and expenses, trade will be redirected to Peru at the detriment of existing shipping ports. This brings us to the various challenges that the Chancay project presents. For one, Chile, the region's current leader in maritime trade, will face a severe blow once the port comes into operation. With Chancay, Peru will be able to receive post-Panamaxes and ultra-large container vessels, ULCVs. Chilean ports are too small for these larger, more efficient vessels, and as a consequence, the country will fall behind in trade with the Asian markets. Chile is a rival to Peru in both the logistics and copper exporting industries and has also raised concerns about illegal fishing in its territorial waters, core issues for Santiago to effectively address. Compounded on this are disputes with Chinese investors. In March 2024, while the port was still in construction, the Autoridad Portuaria Nacional, Peru's technical body that manages the country's ports, attempted to remove the exclusivity clause that COSCO held to operate all services within the port. This clause, the authority claimed, was mistakenly granted due to an administrative error. COSCO quickly defended their interest, arguing that annulment of exclusivity rights would affect the security and legal stability of investment, changing the very fundamentals of the project's economics. With the risk of potential international arbitration, Peru and the Chinese shipping company entered into a 6-month negotiation to resolve the issue amicably. The PRC, a crucial trading partner, poses too much of a risk in its ability to retaliate against Lima if it gets brought into these disputes. Not to mention, the case would present a side of Peru hostile to future foreign investment. As a result, the Peruvians were quick to shut down any potential issues, and now the APN's charge against COSCO has been dropped so that both countries can benefit from the port's completion. Latin America also risks pivoting too hard into its resource base. A dependency on China for value-added products leaves Latino manufacturers crowded out of the market as governments place more emphasis on exporting raw materials to China in exchange for cheap revenues. A study by CEPAL, an economic commission for Latin America, found that most of the region's top economies had decreased their employment in the manufacturing sector and are now at risk of premature deindustrialization. This trend is characterized by an increase in the specialization towards commodities, resource-based manufacturing, and a shift to low-productivity services to the detriment of domestic industries, though countries such as Mexico have countered this trend. In 2022, Peru exported $17.6 billion to China. The main products that Peru exported to China were copper ore, iron ore, and animal meal and pellets. Chinese imports included broadcasting equipment, computers, and cars. This is much in line with the region's heavyweights, Chile, Argentina, and Brazil, and presently mirrors the case Latin America faces with the Western world. As trading relations with these countries have primarily focused on the mining, oil, and agricultural sectors, there is little political support for enhancing the value add of the region's workers. Finally, the last issue confronting the megaproject are the repeated warnings from the United States. Alarm bells have been raised in Washington over the growing influence of Beijing in Latin America. By developing and operating ports in strategic locations, China can control global shipping routes and potentially deny Americans access to these key terminals. The intended purpose of the BRI is to foster Beijing's economic ties and increase goodwill among foreign governments, expanding its sphere of influence. With China's share in Latin America's OFDI, overseas foreign direct investment, increasing, there is the additional option that these investments can be used as military assets or as leverage in trade negotiations with partner countries. China's civil-military cooperation also extends to the construction of the project. Shanghai Zhenhua Heavy Industries, a company linked by U.S. officials to cybersecurity threats and China's military capabilities, has been contracted to supply construction equipment, including automated cranes, to the Peruvians. Despite these concerns, Peru and other South American governments have pushed on to deepen relations with Beijing, partially because the US and the EU are unwilling to provide the necessary funding the region needs. Since 2006, Asia has become the main source of OFDI globally, ahead of North America. China has played a pivotal role in this increase, with its share of global OFDI going from under 1% in 1991 to 19.69% in 2020. By utilizing this infrastructure diplomacy, China expands on its cooperation with global South countries and attempts to create a lasting alliance outside of traditional American power blocs. For Peru, the Chancay makes the nation one step closer to achieving its development goals and raising incomes among its citizens. To create a lasting relationship, Beijing must deepen its soft power in Peru and cooperate in mutually beneficial relationships with the region's actors. In order for Peruvian lawmakers and citizens to remain pleased, China must link itself to the country's prosperity.